Of all the most famous and most respected auteur filmmakers, there's one who stands apart from the rest, Stanley Kubrick. Widely considered and credited as being the best director of all time, any of his films would have made for a good essential art house selection, and many of them will at some point, but we had to choose one to go first. Ultimately, I realized there was one which stands apart from the rest in many regards, one which even many of his fans have not watched for some reason unknown to me, Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb. The film depicts a nightmare scenario where an Air Force general fakes an invasion to prompt a nuclear strike against the Russians and the resulting scramble to call it off. With a description like that, you wouldn't assume that this film is actually a comedy, Kubrick's only comedy in fact. You might wonder how someone is able to make a biting satire about the possibility of a nuclear holocaust, but if there's anyone who is able to walk this line skillfully, it's Kubrick. War and death are serious topics, and with the sheer scale of the potential violence and devastation to be unleashed, this film has to be one of the darkest and most cynical comedies of all time.
Hell.
Shot with high contrast lighting, almost like a film noir, the film doesn't present itself like a comedy either. It uses almost no close-ups for comedic effect, and most scenes play out in long takes from a wide angle. Compared to most of Kubrick's other films, the camera movements and the techniques used don't feel as flashy. If you look at this side by side with the film that would follow it, 2001: A Space Odyssey, the camera work is understated, allowing for the writing and performances to shine through, rather than the production design, cinematography, and atmospheric qualities. The comedy comes through more in the writing and the way the characters are performed by the actors.
Am I to understand the Russian ambassador is to be admitted entrance to the war room?
That is correct. He is here on my orders.
I don't know exactly how to put this, sir, but are you aware of what a serious breach of security that would be? I mean, you'll see everything. You'll see the big board.
Serious moments are undercut with jokes about bodily fluids, impotence, cringeworthy awkwardness, and childish behavior among world leaders.
I can no longer sit back and allow communist infiltration, communist indoctrination, communist subversion, and the international communist conspiracy to sap and impurify all of our precious bodily fluids.
The score also doesn't imply a comedic tone either. It features only a few pieces of music over the course of its runtime, and the most notable one feels like a war march.
Well, boys, I reckon this is it. Nuclear combat toe-to-toe with the Ruskies.
Most of the performances also are somewhat understated, especially by today's standards. For me at least, there are only two exceptions to this. There's the titular character himself, Dr. Strangelove, played by Peter Sellers, whose voice and physicality reminds me of a Monty Python sketch.
Mr. President, it is not only possible, it is essential. That is the whole idea of this machine, you know. Deterrence is the art of producing in the mind of the enemy the fear to attack.
The other is General Buck Turgison, played by George C. Scott, who apparently was pushed by Kubrick to act more over the top in some takes, with Kubrick misleading him into thinking the overperformed takes wouldn't be the ones used in the final cut.
If the pilot's good, see, I mean, if he's really sharp, he can barrel that baby in so low. I mean, you ought to see it sometime. It's a sight. A big plane like a 52 room. It's jet exhaust frying chickens in the barnyard.
From the opening credits sequence, the film uses phallic imagery and sexual analogies to draw a comparison between the nuclear arms race and something of a dick measuring contest. The military men's frustration at the lack of military action against the Soviet Union is likened to sexual frustration. The general who calls the nuclear strike does so after suspecting a Soviet water tampering conspiracy is the reason for his impotence. Another general is called away to the war room, interrupting a sexual encounter with a girlfriend, who later calls him, interrupting his discussion of nuclear combat in the war room. The pilot of a bomber plane carrying weapons straddles a nuke as if it's an extension of his manhood. Men on the plane pass around a copy of Playboy the first time they're shown in the film. Also, many of the characters' names and locations mentioned in the film are also some sort of joke, some relating to the sexual themes in the film. But I'll let you find all those little Easter eggs on your own.
Jolly good idea. Keeps the men on their toes.
There are so many subtle jokes and classic one-liners in this film that it's hard to narrow it down to a favorite.
Ice cream? Ice cream, Mandrake? Children's ice cream?
Now then, Dmitri, you know how we've always talked about the possibility of something going wrong with the bomb.
So you guys autistic about it before, eh? You war machine for it.
Gentlemen, you can't fight in here. This is the war room.
It's the type of comedy where you laugh at different jokes the second time because on your first viewing they went right over your head, or you were too busy laughing at something else. One thing I noticed on my rewatch of the film is how it focuses heavily on things going wrong or not according to plan. Every safeguard implemented to prevent this exact sort of occurrence, every element of the plan to conduct a strike seems to hinder their ability to prevent one. Every scare tactic used as a deterrence fails to do just that. It seems as if every single thing seems to go wrong in this film, and it functions as both a frightening wake-up call to the incompetence of the individuals meant to prevent this exact sort of thing from happening, and a hilarious joke, one that feels almost nihilistic if you actually laugh at it. The possibility of a major institutional failure, or a series of failures causing the end of civilization, is both a major existential threat and a source of great satire for this expertly crafted bleak comedy. To me, this skillful maneuvering, the perfect tonal control, and hilarious script make this film easily one of my favorite Kubrick films, and of course, an essential art house film.
We'll meet again. Don't know where, don't know when, but I know we'll meet again some sunny day.